What is going on, everyone? This is Eric coming at you from just outside of Hartford, Connecticut. And today, we're doing the last of our three-part series recapping the 2020-2021 MLB offseason as we look at the AL and the NL West. So, we're going to start off with the Houston Astros. And the Astros had a not good offseason. So, they made two moves. They re-signed outfielder Michael Brantley, and then they did sign relief pitcher Pedro Baez. But they did lose outfielder George Springer, relief pitcher Khris, relief pitcher Roberto Osuna, and outfielder Josh Reddick. Osuna and Reddick are both still pending free agents, but realistically, neither one's probably coming back to the team. Reddick's done at this point. He doesn't look that good. Osuna probably wore out his welcome in Houston, so yeah. Davinsky, solid, middle leverage guy. Good inning eater in the 5th, 6th, 7th innings if you need him to. Springer, of course, is the big name that they lost. Losing Springer, he's a homegrown player for them. Obviously, from the state of Connecticut, so Heartland Sports definitely loves George Springer. So, Springer's a big loss. He's going to be tough to replace. He at least was a 5-tool athlete. At this point, his speed isn't there anymore, but he has substituted his speed for more power. George Springer will be missed in Houston, but I'm very happy that he's out of Houston because now people don't hate him as much. Now, Pedro Baez, okay reliever. But the big news there was re-signing Michael Brantley. So the news came out originally that Brantley was going to leave the team, joining Toronto, but then he backed out of that deal, re-signed with the Astros. It was a weird situation, but yeah, we'll have to see what happens with that. Nothing crazy. Brantley's a good player, always underrated. Good move to keep him by Houston. Next, we have the LA Angels, and the Angels made a few moves, mostly via trades. So they traded for 3 players in 3 separate deals, adding shortstop Jose Iglesias, relief pitcher Rafael Iglesias, and outfielder Dexter Fowler. They also signed pitcher Jose Quintana, and they signed outfielder John Jay to a minor league deal. They did lose shortstop Andrelton Simmons and relief pitcher Hansel Robles. So losing Simmons is a tough move. He is, as I mentioned with Minnesota, a possible Hall of Famer. The stats guys love him. Defensive whiz. We'll have to see what happens. It's going to be more when people who are around my age are going to be voting for the Hall of Fame. He's not going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but Robles served as a closer at times in LA this past year. Now they have Iglesias, so they didn't need to keep him. Iglesias is a little better. Speaking of Iglesias, like I said, he's a better closer than Robles. I do like him as a closer. I'd be pretty excited. This is a guy who a few years ago was an opening day starter for the Reds before they converted him to a closer. So there's potential. Jose Iglesias, I'm not the biggest fan of him, but he's still an okay shortstop, I suppose. Dexter Fowler, they essentially they gave up basically nothing for the guy. He's not what he was a few years back. So they're just hoping they can turn nothing into something. They're in it to win it this year. They have the payroll. They want to see if they can get Pujols one more ring. So, and then of course Quintana, it's a shot in the dark. John Jay, you can't go wrong with John Jay on a minor league deal. Next, we have the Oakland Athletics, and the Athletics had an interesting offseason. So they did sign relief pitcher Trevor Rosenthal, designated hitter Mitch Moreland, and then they did re-sign starting pitcher Mike Fiers. I'm going to always mention him when he makes a move. And then they traded for shortstop Elvis Andrus. Now they did lose relief pitcher Liam Hendriks, outfielder Robbie Grossman, shortstop Marcus Semien, infielder Tommy La Stella, and they traded away designated hitter Khris Davis. Khris Davis with a K, not a C. So losing Davis is going to hurt, but he had a rotten year in 2020. The model of consistency for the prior 3-4 years really fell off a cliff in 2020. So they're just trying to dump his salary and hope that, getting the Andrus helps out. Now, losing La Stella hurts, losing Semien hurts, but Semien, another rough year for the team. Oakland's offense really took a step back in 2020, so they just kind of said, okay, we're going to get rid of a few of our key players. La Stella was traded for, so he's not a big loss. Hendriks is a big loss for their relief pitching, though. That's going to be a missed reliever right there, one of the better relievers in the game. He got a big deal from Chicago, so Oakland said, okay. In response, they signed Trevor Rosenthal relatively recently. You can't have enough good bullpen arms, and Oakland proved that when they signed Rosenthal. You can't blame them. It was a little bit of a surprise when they took Rosenthal, but nobody's complaining. Mitch Moreland, can't go wrong, solid DH. Mike Fiers, again, not the player he was a few years back, but he's still a serviceable innings eater. And Elvis Andrus, not the player he was a few years ago, but good move for them to get him, I suppose. He's at least going to help you sell some tickets. So Robbie Grossman, they did lose him. I skipped him. Not a big name. Next, we have the Mariners, and the Mariners had a quiet offseason. So they did sign starting pitcher James Paxton, relief pitcher Ken Giles, and they traded for relief pitcher Rafael Montero. They did lose outfielder Mallex Smith. Mallex Smith, I added him more because they've traded for him a couple times at this point, so now they let him go. Don't be shocked if Seattle tries to get him back, but he's not what he was. He doesn't have the speed he had anymore. Montero's just going to step into that bullpen, probably help them out in 2021, because Ken Giles, as we know, he did sign a 2-year deal, but he will not be playing in 2021 after getting Tommy John surgery, so it's more of a long-term investment for Ken Giles. He's going to go straight on the 60-day DL when they get the opportunity. When they get the opportunity. James Paxton comes back to Seattle. I like this signing a lot. It's a good buy low. Hopefully Paxton steps up. And maybe just the time in the Big Apple was too much for him. Some guys struggle when you put him in a big market like New York. So, lastly, we have the Texas Rangers. And the Rangers had a busy offseason. So they did sign outfielder David Dahl. And then they made a few trades, trading for first baseman Nate Lowe, designated hitter Khris Davis, the aforementioned one from Oakland, and starting pitcher Dane Dunning, but they did trade away a few players, including starting pitcher Lance Lynn, relief pitcher Rafael Montero to Seattle, awkwardly enough, shortstop Elvis Andrus, again, to Oakland, and then they did lose a trio of players in starting pitcher Corey Kluber, starting pitcher Mike Minor, and outfielder Shin-Soo Choo. So, Mike Minor, not an amazing player, but still solid player. I'd be happy to have him on the team. So, good innings eater for our team. That's not necessarily a contender. Losing Shin-Soo Choo, is a bit of a tough one. He played through the full contract. They gave him that massive 7-year contract, I believe it was, and he played through the full contract. That's pretty impressive. He went back to Korea. So you got to be happy if you're him. You know, you got money in the United States. You're going back home to end your career. Really good signing for Texas. Too bad he didn't get a ring, but very respected player. I wish him luck in Korea. Corey Kluber really didn't do much for Texas, but they didn't give up an awful lot to get him. So, and then of course trading away those 3 players. Elvis Andrus, longtime shortstop. He'll be missed. More of a fan favorite at this point. Rafael Montero. There's no point in keeping him on this team. Team's not in contending, so that's why they also got rid of Lance Lynn. Lance Lynn is one of those guys that a lot of fans are saying this guy's overrated, but there's a big selection of them that are going to say he's underrated. So it's a real mess with Lance Lynn. Now, Dane Dunning has a bright future. I do like Dane Dunning a lot more than probably an average fan does. We'll have to see how he does, but he's perfect for a team like Texas. You know, you could throw him out there and say, okay, we'll see what happens. Khris Davis, just a guy to help sell some tickets, I suppose. Nate Lowe, same thing. And David Dahl, shot in the dark, buy low move. Can't go wrong with that. So how do I have this division ending? It's an interesting one because there's a clear top 3 and then a bottom 2. So I would have to say it's always tough to count out Houston, but I do have to say I think the Angels are going to win this division this year. I think Trout's gonna have a career year, which is saying a lot. I think Shohei Ohtani is gonna finally get back into the groove. I don't know if he's gonna be a starting pitcher still, but I think that he's gonna have a great year. I think he's gonna bounce back, show us that 2019 and 2020 are in the past. Fingers crossed. I do have Houston coming in second. I think they can take a wild card spot. I just can't count out the Astros. They have so many good players still. Yes, losing Springer hurts, but they kept Brantley. Kyle Tucker looks really good. He's going to take over a Springer starting role in right field. So, yeah. And then, of course, in third place, I have Oakland. Oakland can compete for a playoff spot. Definitely. I do like Oakland a lot. I'm probably undervaluing Oakland in all honesty. But this is a team that I think they're going to go through a little bit of a rebuild once more. I think the pitching is going to regress slightly, but I think the offense it has to improve. At this point, Chapman and Olsen, they're going to rebound. Seattle should come in 4th, just because Texas is so bad. It's not really praising Seattle. Hopefully they call up some of their young prospects. We heard recently that their president, GM, made those comments there. He admitted to playing time manipulation, so he needed to go, and Seattle has to be happy to get rid of that guy. So goodbye, good riddance. Lastly, Texas. Texas is just, sorry, Texas is probably looking at being the 30th team in the league. They're probably trying to get that first overall pick in the draft, so this team's not going to be good. So LA, I have LA in first, Houston coming in second, Oakland coming in third, Seattle in fourth, Texas in fifth. So how about the NL West? So the NL West, of course, we're going to start off here with the Arizona Diamondbacks. They had a relatively quiet offseason. They signed relief pitcher Joakim Soria and infielder Asdrubal Cabrera, and then they did lose outfielder John Jay, and probably will lose starting pitcher Mike Leake. Mike Leake, like Mike Minor, both players were drafted before Mike Trout. They're both solid inning eaters, but you're not going to get a superstar production out of either one of them. So, I mean, it's not going to hurt. I don't know if Leake's going to get a job anywhere. John Jay, good clubhouse guy, but obviously not what he was a few years back. That's why he's on a minor league deal. And then Arizona just signing Soria. He's a guy who you can probably throw out there if he makes a team. He could probably go out there in the 8th inning. Asdrubal Cabrera, solid guy to have off your bench. If you have him starting for an extended amount of time, not the best, but Colorado Rockies. So the Rockies, obviously, we all know the big trade that they made, but we're going to start off by discussing their additions when they acquired pitcher Austin Gomber and via trade, and first baseman CJ Cron is on a minor league deal. They traded away third baseman Nolan Arenado, and then, of course, outfielder David Dahl and relief pitcher Wade Davis both walked. So let's just get the big one out of the way. Arenado had just signed a massive extension, and then they trade him away. Obviously, Colorado, they tried. All their moves that they made failed in recent years, so it stinks to see Arenado leave. And unfortunately, if you're a Rockies fan, it sets a precedent that you're probably not going to re-sign Trevor Story, because why would Story re-sign if he just saw his buddy, Arenado, re-sign and then get traded? So Trevor Story is going to be an interesting storyline heading up in the 2021-2022 offseason, but for now, Colorado still has him. David Dahl kept getting hurt. Solid player when healthy, but he just couldn't stay healthy. And Wade Davis, speaking of can't stay healthy, he was a guy they hoped would do a lot. He did nothing for him. Austin Gomber joining this team, fingers crossed he has a good career, but we didn't see too much in St. Louis. And CJ Cron, if he makes this team, he'll be a solid starter. Now, of course, they did get some prospects for Arenado as well, but we don't list them because they're not big-name prospects. So, surprisingly, at least right now, it looks like St. Louis fleeced Colorado. Next, we have the defending World Series champion, LA Dodgers. Now, they re-signed third baseman Justin Turner, and then they made a big move in free agency when they signed starting pitcher Trevor Bauer, and then they also signed pitcher Jimmy Nelson to a minor league deal. Now, they did lose utility man Enrique Hernandez, or Kike Hernandez, if you will. They also lost outfielder Joc Pederson and relief pitcher Pedro Baez. Really, Baez, you're not going to miss him that much. Solid guy to put out in the 7th inning sometimes, but not the best. Pederson, good platoon bat, but the Dodgers don't need platoon bats. They already have starters pretty much everywhere. Enrique Kike Hernandez, really good bench bat, plays all over the field. They will miss him just because of his versatility. Jimmy Nelson probably won't make the team, but he's a good guy to have in the minors. Justin Turner, great re-signing. It would have been so weird to see him outside of LA. He's going to see his playing time go down, of course, this year. But still, Justin Turner, good re-signing. Now, the big name, of course, is Trevor Bauer. I have discussed this guy before. I have mentioned I'm not the biggest fan of his. And there's that whole thing with spin rate. So there's plenty of articles out there, and there's videos about him. And basically, Bauer called out his best friend, Garrett Cole, obviously sarcastic. And he basically said, Garrett Cole's cheating. All these pitchers are cheating. I can prove it. I can do this. If I do this illegal substance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase my spin rate by 200, 300 RPM. Sure enough, his spin rate went up by like 250 RPM this year. I'm not sold on him. I think he got his payday. I think he's going to call it a day. He's going to regress slightly. He's returning home to LA, but we'll have to see what happens. I'm very skeptical on Bauer, but he went to a great spot for him. LA is a great ballpark for a pitcher. Next, we have the San Diego Padres. Now, the Padres had one of the busiest off seasons in free agency. Now, quickly, they signed utility man Jerickson Profar, and then they made 3 trades, trading for 3 starting pitchers in Joe Musgrove, Yu Darvish, and Blake Snell. And then they did sign a Korean infielder named Ha-Seong Kim, and then they did trade away starting pitcher Zach Davies, while also losing a pair of relievers in Kirby Yates and Trevor Rosenthal, and then starting pitcher Garrett Richards via free agency. Richards didn't pan out as much as they'd hoped he would in San Diego. He was acquired to be an ace, and he wasn't an ace, so good riddance to him if you're a Padres fan. Good luck, no hatred. Rosenthal is going to hurt, as will Yates. This bullpen's going to struggle a little bit without those two, but they still have a very strong bullpen. Still, Yates is going to hurt more, but Rosenthal is still a very good player. And then, of course, Zach Davies. Admittedly, I'm higher on Zach Davies than most. He's a soft pitcher, so he doesn't throw with speed. He doesn't overpower you, but I like how Zach Davies plays. Now, of course, the moves that they made, Jerickson Profar, good utility bat to have on your bench. You can't go wrong. He's probably not going to do all that much for the Padres. And then, of course, Ha-Seong Kim, he's probably more going to be hopefully their starting second baseman, if not, key backup shortstop, third baseman. We'll have to see how Ha-Seong Kim does. It's going to be a big jump forward for him. He dominated in the KBL, but remember the KBL is considered to be about as equal to a level between AA and AAA, so we'll have to see what happens. And then the big 3 that they traded for, Joe Musgrove, solid pitcher, he'll step in. He's probably going to be the odd man out in a year when they get all their reinforcements back and Clevenger finally comes back. I was trying to think if he had Tommy John. Pretty sure he had Tommy John. I know he's not playing in 2021. So, Yu Darvish is a guy I'm also not as high on as just like Bauer. We'll have to see how Darvish does in San Diego. Blake Snell, very surprised to see the Rays trade him, and he really went to a really good spot in San Diego. I'm excited if I'm a Padres fan for the first time in a while. I think this team is ready to compete today, and this team will be ready to compete for a while too. They're young, they're talented. Lastly, we have the San Francisco Giants, and the Giants had another quiet offseason. They signed infielder Tommy La Stella, starting pitcher Anthony DeSclafani, and relief pitcher Jake McGee. Now, they did lose starting pitcher Drew Smyly, and then they have 2 more key free agents that are starting pitcher Jeff Samardzija and infielder Zach Cozart, both of whom have yet to sign. Cozart, he'll probably get a job somewhere, but it'll probably be a minor league deal. He's not what he was a few years ago after some injuries took away a lot of his abilities. Samardzija, same exact thing. He's not what he was a few years back. Just age has gotten to him. I think he's 36, 37. So he really hasn't been overpowering anymore. Drew Smyly, for some reason Atlanta gave him a big deal. Okay, good luck with that. San Francisco is never going to match that. DeSclafani, though, solid pickup. They're hoping they can help turn him around and flip him for a prospect or 2 at the trade deadline. Can't go wrong with that. Jake McGee, solid reliever out of your bullpen. Not a closer, but... And then Tommy La Stella, pretty good player. La Stella is a guy who's probably going to be a starter for this team, and you could shift him around. You could have him start at second, third, short, even first if you wanted to. So if I'm the Giants, you're not going to be competing in 2021, but you do have a good spot. Now, how do I rank these teams? It's going to be tough between LA and San Diego. You could really flip a coin, and I'm